And we are back. So, same essential question as before. How did westward expansion increase sectional tensions between the North and South from 1820 to 1850? The video prior to this dealt primarily with the Missouri Compromise, the first little bit of westward expansion, and all of the issues that came along with that. But the same essential question is going to apply to this whole sectionalism deal. How did westward expansion contribute to sectionalism within the United States, that's splitting between North and South? So you should know at this point what sectionalism is. That's discussed in the last video if you're not certain. So please feel free to go back and watch that. But at this point we have probably talked about that in class. So if you're still not sure, look at that video again or talk with a peer, whatever. Same vocab as well. We covered sectionalism and the Missouri Compromise, and today we are going to cover Nat Turner's Rebellion, the Compromise of 1850, Free Soil Party Wilmot Proviso, Fugitive Slave Act / Law, and I think also Popular Sovereignty. So this should knock out all of those vocab terms that we have there. And we will do the why, the what, and the impact for all of these. So prepare for that. Do that in class. But anyway, let's get back to the info. Tariffs. They say the only things that are certain in life are taxes and death. So you may know that to be true at this point, or you'll find out later on in life. That seems to be the case with the United States. Tariffs just being a tax that is placed on imports has been an issue within the United States up to this point, will continue to be an issue into the modern day. But in the 1830s, tariffs are a big, huge deal, and they really do divide the North and the South, primarily because the South feels like the tariffs only really benefit the North. Southerners feel like they're the only ones that are having to bear that tax burden. They're the ones that are paying for all of these imported goods. You've got the information down here on how it is that a tariff works. So British-made cloth costs $4 a roll. There's a 25% tariff, increase it to $1, so it makes it more expensive. It's trying to create competition within the market, get people to buy American-made goods instead of foreign goods, so the American economy is bolstered. But as we've talked about with the regional differences, we know that the only region within the United States that is really paying for imported goods is the South. So they're really the only ones that are bearing that tax burden. The North isn't paying it, the West isn't paying it, it's primarily the South. So because of this tariff issue, and specifically the tariff of abominations under John Quincy Adams' administration, you're going to see this Frankenstein-looking guy, John C. Calhoun, attempt to nullify a tariff, attempt to essentially say, our state, yeah, that tax, we're not paying that. And if we have to, if you force us, if you make us, you tell us we have to, we're just going to leave. We're just going to leave the U.S. We're just going to become our own separate independent country. So South Carolina doing secession before it was cool, essentially back in the day. So John C. Calhoun, vice president of Andrew Jackson's at that point in time, threatens to nullify the law and then threatens to secede if they're not allowed to nullify the law. President Andrew Jackson, of course, is 100% against this and does fight against John C. Calhoun's argument that it is a state's right to nullify whatever federal law they feel is not fair or not significant, should not be enforced within their particular state. Just imagine if states could nullify whatever federal law they wanted to. That would be just a complete contradiction to that idea of federalism that we've talked about as well. I hope that's not a new word to you. If not, hey, look that up. So federalism, this whole states' rights idea, this whole nullification idea, completely contradictory to that. And of course, Andrew Jackson is not going to be in favor of nullification and is in fact going to threaten to send the military down into South Carolina and hang John C. Calhoun, his vice president. So Andrew Jackson, always a guy quick to resort to violence. So tariffs are a means or a reason that the South gets upset at the North, leading to more sectional differences. But also, the South has some internal problems as well, some things that they fear that are going to occur within their own region as well. And if you look at that map again from that previous video, the slave population within the South is humongous. There is such a significant population of slaves within the South, and that is basically a powder keg. Something waiting to boil over within the South. And they're afraid that these slaves are eventually going to realize, hey, we outnumber these rich white plantation owners that own us, that treat us like crap, that treat us like property, because essentially that's what slaves are during this time. They are property. So that Southern fear is finally going to occur. It's finally going to happen. They're terrified of a slave rebellion. And that is going to be realized in Nat Turner's rebellion. Nat Turner, a pretty significant figure within the community, even amongst the whites in the community in which he lived. He was a slave, but he was pretty well educated. He was a religious man and felt that he had received a prophecy from God, a mission from God to lead a slave rebellion within his particular state. And so Nat Turner is going to rally a huge number of slaves within his local community to one night to arm themselves, to kill the owner of his particular plantation, and then go throughout the community and kill basically any white people that they come across, whether it be men, whether it be women, whether it be children. They storm the community and kill these people in their sleep. Eventually Nat Turner and his cohorts are caught and they are sentenced to death. So after this occurs, there's going to be what already exists at the South. There's a anti-black sentiment, but that is going to be fueled further by fear, by terror that this is going to happen again. People were always afraid of a slave rebellion of great significance within the South. Well, Nat Turner kind of brings that fear to life, and people are afraid that that will happen again. They don't want that to occur. So Southern whites are going to respond by making what's called slave codes much more severe. These are laws that have been put in place in order to limit slaves within the South, in order to limit the fact that they can get educated, something that Nat Turner was, and something they wanted to prevent from that point onward. So you'll see that slaves are no longer educated in any way, shape, or form by Southerners, and it's actually outlawed. You could have to pay a fine or actually serve jail time if you were a white individual that educated a slave. Slaves couldn't be out past a certain time. They had to have certain paperwork with them that told people where it is they were going, who it was that owned them, and things of that sort. So internal fear within the South, significant to slaves, and what could happen if these slaves decide to unify against their Southern owners. Back to this westward expansion, though. Back to the role that it plays. So westward expansion in the 1840s, that's going to become an issue again. What do we do? Because we're trying to maintain a balance once again. The Missouri Compromise was a temporary solution, and so we get to the point to where Texas wants to be admitted into the Union as well. And it actually wins its independence from Mexico in 1836. And Texas wants to join with the United States. As we know from expansion, most of the people that lived there were Americans, and were actually slave-owning Americans as well. And so when Texas was admitted, or when it would be admitted, it was going to be a slave state. There was no debate about that. Texas was absolutely going to be a slave state. However, there wasn't a free state that could be admitted at that time. So Texas kind of just sits in limbo as this small autonomous nation between the United States and between Mexico for about 9 years, because it would make a significant imbalance within the U.S. Senate, because there would be more southern slave states if Texas was admitted than northern free states. So eventually Texas is admitted into the Union. In addition to this, after we have the Mexican-American War, we gain this thing called the Mexican Secession as well. So prior to the Missouri Compromise and after the Missouri Compromise, one of the big fears was, well, okay, the North has a lot more land. So when the Mexican Secession is gained, and also when Texas is eventually annexed, the Southerners that fear is stifled. They look at the map the same way we can now and go, okay, cool. It seems like there's a lot more room in the South now. We can expand further westward and maintain balance. A status quo can be made. We'll keep that 3630 line thing going on, and we'll just have southern states in the Mexican Secession. We'll have southern states within Texas and any other territory that was claimed there, and eventually the Gadsden Purchase. So Southerners think that, okay, we're going to have slavery not only just in the South down here up to Texas, but we're going to have it all the way to the Pacific Ocean. We'll have slavery all throughout the United States, and it's going to be a rocket. Well, Northerners don't want that. Specifically a group called the Free Soilers, so I'm going to address more in depth here in just a second. So what to do with all this new territory? Texas is going to be slave, quite obviously, but what about the Mexican Secession? Nobody's really living there right now, except for some people that didn't want to move down into Mexico, previous Mexican citizens that stay within that territory, and settlers that have moved in. So the question is, we have all this new land. what's it going to be? What to do with it? One of the solutions was proposed by a congressman, I forget his name, I believe it was David Wilmot, in the Wilmot Proviso, which essentially said no slavery. In the Mexican Secession, in all of this territory that was gained from Mexico, whether it be the Mexican Secession itself or the Gadsden Purchase, there would be no slavery at all there. And Southerners in the Senate were like, oh, heck no. That's not going to happen. That is not going to be a thing that occurs. So, as a result of all of this new territory, eventually a new political party is going to emerge called the Free Soil Party. It forms in response to this westward movement and the topic of slavery and what to do with it, what's going to happen with slavery off in the West. So, Free Soilers, I don't want you to get confused and think that Free Soilers are abolitionists, that Free Soilers are these great people that think slavery is wrong and it shouldn't go westward. That's not it at all. They just did not want slavery to expand into the West. They didn't want slavery to go westward. They were fine with it existing in the South where it already existed. They were happy with that. They had no sort of moral problem with slavery whatsoever. What Free Soilers did not want was slavery off in the West. They didn't want slavery to exist in a new area where farmers moving westward, white landowning farmers who were free, they didn't want them to have to compete with slavery because they knew, the Free Soilers, they knew that that is something that they could not compete with. They could not compete with free labor, these huge plantation owners moving westward and starting to grow not only cotton, but also grain and anything else. All right, so in 1850, California is going to be asked to enter the Union, and it is going to become a free state. There's no slave presence there, so Texas can be admitted as well as California. So Texas is your slave state, California is your free state, and the balance is once again maintained. But Southerners, of course, don't want more free states. They want slavery to be allowed within these southwestern territories. Northerners, however, want to keep slavery out of the Southwest and want other laws to protect runaway slaves because we have the Underground Railroad that is in full swing. We have slaves that are running off into the North where slavery is not allowed to exist. And these people want freedom within the North, these runaway slaves. And a lot of abolitionists really want to protect these people as well. So they want the law to protect them. They want the federal government to step in and have something that protects these people. So there's a need for a compromise. Once again, think about this from a northern point of view and a southern point of view as well, and how you would feel about this particular compromise being from those two regions. So, this compromise is the compromise of 1850, these two groups coming together, North and South once again, in order to settle this sectional dispute. First off, California enters as a free state. That's the first part of the compromise of 1850. Second off, the people of Utah and New Mexico could vote to allow or ban slavery. So Utah Territory and New Mexico Territory, when these different territories wish to become state, they would use popular sovereignty. Instead of the government going, this will be a free state, or this will be a free state, or this will be a slave state, instead they will put it to a vote. The people within that territory, when they apply for statehood, will vote on whether to be free or whether to be a slave state. It's basically lazy politics. Instead of the government having to make a decision, they allow a more democratic solution and let the people decide for themselves, and whatever the majority is wins. Also, the slave trade would be ended in Washington, D.C. The nation's capital will no longer have slaves being sold within it. And then lastly, and probably most significant, a stronger fugitive slave law was created that allowed Southerners to recapture slaves within the North. So if your slave, say from South Carolina, escaped into the North, let's say Pennsylvania or New York or wherever, it was a Northerner's responsibility, according to the law, to return that slave back down to the South. That was the law. So, the end of this. From 1820 to 1850, sectionalism in America increased due to several things. First off, differences in regional economies and the use of slavery. North being mainly manufacturing and factories, the South being mostly slavery and cotton. Westward expansion and the entry of new states into the Union, that caused sectional problems as well, because it's a matter of how do we maintain a balance? Is this state going to be free? Is it going to be slave? What's going to happen there? And also abolitionism is going to increase within the North as well. It's going to become more and more popular because people see slavery as evil. It's morally wrong. It's terrible. You're enslaving people, not just property. But each time a dispute threatened the nation up into 1850, a compromise was going to be reached, a peaceful compromise. But that's it for this one, guys. We covered all the vocab, and that should have the essential question answered for you. So we will discuss this stuff in class as well, and I'll see you guys then.